Before we get into details of what exactly are the career options in front of fresh graduates, I think there are several options to choose from, several things that you are thinking about. But of course, HR exists in the context of an organization. It is a role within an organization. I want to talk to you a little bit about what kind of a role is it in an organization. Mainly, there are two primary function groups in a team, what we call the core function and the support functions. Now, core functions is what the business is about. So that is why core function is also often called business. It's just for business. So, for example, you might have heard your recruiter friend say things like, the business wants to hire 20 people and we are negotiating with them. You might have wondered, who is this business they are talking about? Aren't they the business? No, they are not actually. They are the support function. The core function is often known as business. Core function simply means whatever it is that the company actually does. So, for example, if it's a textile company, then the core function of the company is textile. People involved in producing textiles, the people who are the male workers, the people who source the raw material, the operation of the business is actually a core function. In an IT company, the core function could be the programmers, in an ITES company, it could be the people who are taking the calls or people who are doing the data entry and the team that manages them. That entire operation, which does whatever the business does, is called the core function. So what is the support function? Support function is that part which is not directly related to manufacturing the products or services which the organization is producing, but is needed to support everyone else while they go about doing their daily tasks. So, for example, accounting, it's not a core function because the organization does not exist to do accounting. It exists for several other purposes. It exists for producing textile. It exists for producing program software. It exists for building applications, but not for accounting's sake. But accounting is needed for the rest of the organization to do well. As you can imagine, HR is not a core function. It is a support function, which means it helps the operations team, the production team, the manufacturing team in going about their job to ensure that they do a good job. So what does HR do? Human resource management, right? So we can, in HR, we consider human beings as resources. Of course, now some people are objecting to calling them resources as well, but once upon a time, they were just considered costs. So the idea of calling humans as resources was that at least we should move away from the thinking of considering people to be costs. They are not really costs. They are resources. They are resources of talent and skill and abilities and knowledge and competence and capability. And we should be able to leverage these to create value for our clients and customers because they contribute in the operations process. So that's the overall idea. HR is a support function. It does human resource management. Humans are considered resources and we manage them. So what do you mean by manage human resources? What do you manage exactly when you manage human resources? Well, you manage, what do you manage? So the first thing you manage is, you manage the entry of people into the organization, right? You manage the entry of people into the organization. You manage the exit of people from the organization. So you manage people coming into the organization, people going out of the organization, and whatever they do within the organization while they're there. So, for example, once they have entered the organization, they need to be onboarded. They need to be told about their role, where their bank account needs to be opened, their attendance and leave needs to be calculated, they need to be given appropriate training, their performance needs to be measured. If they have any problems, any grievances, any difficulties, then those difficulties or grievances need to be addressed. So there is this whole cycle that needs to be managed while people are in the organization. So from entry to exit of people within the organization. You manage people, people management. HR is also called people management, right? So you select, you find talent, you select talent, they enter the organization, you onboard them, you teach them about the values and the culture of the organization, you tell them about the policies and procedures for people in the organization, you help them get started, you help them get prepared, you train them for the job that they need to do, you monitor their performance over a period of time, you in a way of speaking, you're aware of and troubleshoot any relationship issues, any team issues, any sometimes even personal issues that they have, and then finally when they quit, or if they quit, then you let them go. If they retire, then you manage their retirement, etc., etc. That's broadly the idea of core and support functions, and that's what people do. Let's move on. Now, for a lot of fresh graduates, they might have different reasons, or they might have a wrong perception about what it means to be in HR. So I think it's a good idea in this sort of an introductory platform to clarify and ensure that you don't choose the field of HR for the wrong reasons, right? So some of the wrong reasons that I've heard over a period of time are because people say things like, I should choose HR because I like interacting with people. Right? That's right. If you believe you are a party person, you are a people person, you enjoy interacting with people, or you are good with people, that's definitely going to be an advantage if you are in the field of human resources. But that in itself is not enough for you to be a good HR professional. The reason for that is that HR is not about people pleasing. It's not about making people happy. It's about sometimes making people sad too. It's about doing what is right for people and doing what is right for the organization. Both of these cannot be compromised. You cannot compromise on what is right for people, and you cannot compromise what is right for the organization. And you have to manage people in a way that the outcome is a win-win for both the people and the organization. So you have this sort of dual objective in mind. If you become a pure people pleaser, HR departments that only cater to people usually find themselves short-lived and at odds with the management of the company. And HR departments that only become the voice of the management find themselves at odds with the employee, and then they lose trust, and people and the employees don't trust the HR department. There are several and severe relationship issues that crop up, and HR's ability to get things done is severely short-lived. So I would like to emphasize this, that joining HR because you like interacting with people is not a good enough reason to join the field of HR, because yes, you have to be people-focused, but you also have to be goal-focused, outcome-focused, and organization-focused when you are in the field of HR. I think a lot of people who like to be in helpful professions like counseling or facilitation or coaching believe that HR is something similar. Well, HR does have components of all of those things. HR might involve counseling, might involve coaching, but it's also very important to recognize the fact that it might not, isn't it? It might involve something completely different. It might involve doing payroll processing. It might involve making people's pay slips. It might involve coordinating training programs. So you might not get this opportunity to help people in the way you were looking for or in the way that you want if you choose HR. So again, every profession there is a chance to help people. A salesperson might think that I help people by making their lives better, but through my products and services. A CEO might think that I make people's lives better by giving them a challenging and interesting work environment. Doctor might think so. Every profession there is an opportunity to help people, but there are some professions which are by their very nature meant to help people, like a social worker, counselor, doctor, teacher. What I'm trying to say is that HR is not one of those professions. The purpose of HR is not to help people. The purpose of HR is to align people and the organization in a way that the best outcomes become possible for both. Right? So that's also a wrong reason to join HR. I've also heard people say over the years that they want to join HR because it's easy, or because they feel they will have a great work-life balance. So they think there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of tension if they join a more intense field like sales or something else. But HR will be easy, go to office, do nothing, come back home at 5 o'clock. I assure you nothing could be farther from the truth. Ask any recruitment professional kind of pressure they face. Ask training professionals who absolutely cannot have a bad day at work because every day they are being judged by people who they are into. Talk to a CHRMP professional about the analysis and complexity that they have to manage in their day-to-day job. It's really not a good enough reason. I think whether you are easy or whether you have great work-life balance is not really dependent upon being in HR. Rather, it's dependent upon how you manage your life, how you manage your time. So I think this is a misconception, and I think you should get rid of it. You might find some big organizations in which there are pockets of where people sort of safely nestle, and for several months or even years, nobody notices what they are doing, and they sort of have this easy kind of life. But that is also short-lived, and it's also very harmful for the career if you can for too long and not doing anything productive or anything real. So that does happen, but I think it happens in all functions, not just in HR. And it usually is because the organization is ill-managed and inefficient, and not because the job profile per se is easier, right? So I hope that gives you a more accurate picture into what HR does. If at any point in time you have any questions or you want to say something, feel free to use the chat button and ask your questions. At the end of the webinar, I will give some time to everyone in case you want to ask any question. You can do that at the time. Let's quickly talk about what are the domains in resources. So there are some domains. Recruitment and selection is a domain. Training and development is a domain. Employee relations, compensation and benefits, performance and rewards. These are different domains in HR. I have specifically mentioned the domains, keeping in mind the fact that this webinar is for a fresh graduate audience. And I'll quickly take you through these domains and tell you what kind of jobs and opportunities and tasks are involved in each of these domains. So I think one of the first questions that you will face is what should you do? Should you generalize or specialize? And generalize simply means that you have a general competence. You have a general competence in so I'll just quickly check what slide do you guys see right now? Do you see a slide called domains in human resources? Do you see a slide called domains in human resources? Hello? Do you see a slide called domain in human resources, or do you see some other slide? Okay. Okay, so I will just stop sharing and then share once more, and we'll try to get this to stop working. Right? No problem, I can see your video rather than mine. Is that the video that is on play?
No, I see your video now, Abhishek.
Okay.
I see your video on my screen. You see mine on yours?
Okay. Yeah. Are you able to see my slide now? There's domains in human resources.
Yeah. I can now see the human resources. Yes. I now see domains.
Okay, fantastic. So let's continue. So these are the different domains in human resources. Sorry?
I just wanted to check with others as well if they can see.
Sure. Please do.
Rajat, Akanksha, Pavitra, do you see domains in HR? Now it is changed to generalize or specialize. Do you see that on your computer screen? You can click the question and answer button to be able to chat. Abhishek, did you get a response from the participants? Oh, yes. Everybody says yes, Abhishek. Please go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. So let's continue.
Thank you so much, everybody.
So one of the key questions is, should you generalize in HR or should you specialize in HR? And what that means is, generalization usually means that you are a master of several things. You are doing several things in the organization. You're not a specialist in one area, but you dabble in several areas, and you are able to do justice, hopefully, to all of them. Specialist means you specialize in one domain. Either you become a recruitment specialist, or you become an L&D specialist, or you become a CNB specialist, and you focus on that area and you go deep. So the difference between generalization and specialization is generalists go wide and specialists go deep. That's the main difference. Generalists go wide and specialists go deep. So specialists narrow their focus and go deep. Generalists widen their focus and they don't go deep, but they sort of go wide. They have a knowledge of different areas. One of the reasons why the generalist profile has gained traction in the last decade or so is because many organizations now have a position called HRBP or HR business partner. What does it mean actually? So let me quickly sort of give you an idea about it. Essentially, earlier HR was centrally managed, which means the corporate headquarters of a company would have the HR department, and that HR department, that company, that department which was central, and it would manage the entire organization. So if the organization is spread in several cities or several counties, even then the HR would be managed centrally. The HR people would be sitting in Delhi or Bangalore or Mumbai, and from there they will be managing the organization. But what has happened is, with the advent of IT organization, you have the idea of business teams, right? There are client teams that are working. So for example, a company like Infosys might have several client teams. Each of them is managing a big client, and each team is really big. Each team might have 500, 1,000, 2,000 people. So, and each of these teams have different requirements. They have different hiring requirements, they have different training requirements, they have different attendance and leave requirements, different shift timing, different payrolls, different pay structures, different kinds of people work in these organizations. There might be a client for whom you only have CAs and lawyers working, and you might have another client for whom you have only fresh graduates working who are just doing data entry. So one HR department managing this complexity across so many different types of teams was very, very difficult. So what the idea that evolved from this problem was that why don't we choose to have an HRBP? So what the HRBP does is he belongs to the team. So if there is a business team, The HR business partner is the HR single point of contact for that particular team. He is responsible for managing, he or she is responsible for managing all the HR concerns of that particular team with its unique requirements of training, of recruitment, of selection, of performance appraisal. That is the person who is in contact. So they sort of coordinate with the corporate HR team, but they manage the HR for that team. Now in this, you cannot really have a whole team for a whole HR team to manage a single team's HR requirements. You cannot have a training department, a CNB department, and employee relations department for one team in the same company, and another training department, another CNB department, another employee relations department for another team in the company. So therefore, there is a need for a generalist HR person who can do several things for their own team while they coordinate or connect with the corporate HR and leverage their strength, because the corporate HR team will have specialists in all areas. They will have specialists in L&D, specialists in this, and if you don't have specialists, you can always lean on experts and consulting companies like ours to do this, right? So that was the idea behind. That is the reason why generalist roles have gained traction in the last few years. And yeah, so basically these are two choices that sort of stare at you in the face when you enter the field of HR. Do you want to be a generalist or do you want to be a specialist? I'll take you through various roles that are possible in each of these. So what do HR generalists do? Well, they do general HR operations, attendance, leave management, benefits. They do some amount of training and development. If they can't deliver training, then they manage training. They coordinate training. They ensure attendance in the training. They manage employee relations, handle grievances. They manage the pay structure, the payroll processing, also performance management, rewards. All of these things, different domains. They touch all different domains if they are an HR generalist. Some kinds of jobs that I could find on job websites where HR officer, HR executive, senior HR executive, HR generalist. These are some common things that come up when you talk about HR generalists. Right? So this is one option. If you become an HR generalist, life would be about managing the people requirements of your team. That would include managing operations, T&E, ER, TNB, and performance and rewards. Now, what do recruitment professionals do? So we are done with the generalists. Now we are looking at specializations. So if your specialization is recruitment, what will you do? Well, recruitment is also called sourcing, resourcing, or talent acquisition, also called talent management sometimes, also called talent planning sometimes, depending upon what your exact nature is. Now remember, the sort of list of tasks and jobs I'm mentioning are all for fresh graduates. So I'm not taking into consideration manager or senior manager or director or VP level roles. Only for your fresh graduate, what kind of jobs await you in the field of HR. Now, sourcing and resourcing, these are different names. So essentially what you do is you look outside the organization and you identify and attract key talent. That's your main job, right? You use numerous channels, everything from job sites like Naukri and Monster and TimesJob. You go to Twitter, you go to Facebook, you go to LinkedIn. You look at various sourcing channels and you find candidates to fill vacant positions in the organization. You also liaison between business and the candidates. Again, business means the core function, which means if it's a the software programming company, then there'll be a project manager, and that project manager will be managing he will have a requirement for 3 people in his team. So you sort of have to understand what exactly the requirement is so that you can find the right kind of candidate to fill his or her need. This is very, very important to understand the needs. So essentially you're fulfilling needs of the business. You're going to the project manager, asking him what do you need, sending that out, and then finding candidates to fill that role. Participate in selection, training, and performance management. Now, the recruitment is not only about the process of finding people, it is also about selection. So once you have lined up several candidates. How do you decide who to take in, who not to take in, what salary they have, what other issues they have, what timings do they want, is the role up to their ante, are they ready for the role, is there a culture fit, will they fit into the culture and the value system of the organization, or will they not fit into it? These are some key questions that arise. You can also might need to negotiate salary. Also, recruitment is very closely linked with training and performance management. While you will not be doing training as a recruitment professional, but people will ask you, for example, training department might say, no, the quality of people being recruited is not good enough. We are not able to train them, right? Or they might say, yeah, fantastic job with the recruitment. We are getting very good quality people. So essentially, the people you let into the system go on to other HR specialists in the company, and there will be a constant conversation that they will be having with you and giving you feedback about the quality of people you have let into the company. So that essentially is the purpose of recruitment. Now, various jobs that you find online are IT recruiter, technical recruiter, recruitment specialist, HR executive, recruitment. Now, IT recruiter, technical recruiter are essentially people who understand enough about technology to be able to know what the business wants, because the business wants something very, very specific. They want a Angular 2 a person who specializes in Angular 2 and Python, let us say. So for you to, if you are a recruiter, for you to have an intelligent conversation about Angular 2 and Python, you at least need to know a little bit about it. Even if you don't know how to do coding in Angular 2 and Python, you should at least be able to have an intelligent conversation about it with the candidate. So some amount of technical skills are required to be a recruitment professional. Let's quickly talk about what do L&D professionals do. It's 2:33 p.m. now, so we will aim to finish in under 10 minutes, and then I will have some time for questions as well. Okay? So what do L&D professionals do? Now, L&D professionals, essentially, once people enter the organization, they have to be trained to do their jobs. They have to be upskilled. Their attitude has to be modified. Their skills have to be modified. Their knowledge has to be modified. And one way of doing it is, of course, to provide them with L&D, learning and development, also called training and development. So, a fresh graduate, when he or she joins an organization, the kind of jobs they might do are training coordination, which means if an external trainer is there or business is training itself, you need to create a space, create a schedule, create a plan for this to happen. Ensure, this could include a lot of administrative tasks, like ensuring enough number of people are present, ensuring their attendance, ensuring they fill the feedback form, from the feedback form generating a report to calculate how effective the training was. That could be involved in training coordination. Sometimes you might even do training delivery. What training delivery would mean is that you would actually be delivering these sessions. It could be product training or soft skills training. Product training or process training typically is about a product. For example, in a bank, the product is an insurance product is there. In a BPO, medical billing, for example, the US insurance company or a software that they work on could be a product. You might deliver training on that software. Soft skills training is simple training of business etiquette, communication, effective writing. Those could be soft skills training programs. Might do some coaching, etc. These are different types of work that you can do as an L&D professional. Now, what kind of jobs are available? L&D specialist is a job, instructional designer is a job, content developer is a job, trainer is a job, HR executive L&D. These are various jobs that are available. As an instructional designer, you are essentially a course designer. You decide what will be the flow of the program, what will happen first, then what will happen, how will instruction be designed so that the person who walks into the training experience walks away with some new knowledge, some new skills, or some new attitudes. Content developer simply means development of training programs. Could be developing props, developing collateral like PowerPoint, workbooks, guiding documents, visual aids, etc., etc., etc. As a trainer, of course, you understand what that means. So these are various options open to L&D professionals. What about ER professionals? So ER stands for employee relations. and they essentially contribute to creation of the culture. They motivate and engage the workforce. So the goal is that if people are engaged and interested in what they are doing, then their performance is likely to be better, right? If they come to office, if they dread coming to office, for example, if they're scared of coming to office, then obviously their job satisfaction is going to be low. And there is a clear correlation, actually. There's a beautiful book called Drive, and which talks about what motivates people to perform well. And it talks about how in many companies people are disengaged, they're not interested. So the responsibility of an ER professional is to ensure people are excited, motivated, happy, interested in doing their job. Right? Sometimes the responsibilities are also to communicate with people, keep them updated on what is happening, work on newsletters, work on internal branding. If any grievances or complaints come up, then the ER professional might have to handle that. If there is a conflict, some quarrel breaks out, or there is a culture has gone wrong in a team, or a leader is having problems with his team, ER might have to step in to solve that problem. In more sort of a manufacturing setup, an ER professional might also double up and manage unions. Labor laws needs to be an expertise if that is something that you're going to do. Conduct employee surveys, organizational climate survey. You have employee satisfaction surveys, employee delight surveys, corporate culture surveys, various surveys, and then recommend actions after doing the surveys, and overall try to change the culture and the way people feel in the organization so that they are more engaged, more excited, more interested, more involved, there is less resistance, and they perform better. Right? Some jobs that came up in search on this particular profile are HR executive, employee relations executive. Now, what do C&B or compensation and benefits professionals do? So they essentially manage the payroll. If you're good with numbers, if you're interested in systematic, predictable, routine jobs, then this will really help you. It is very interesting for you because it offers you a kind of security and sameness that other jobs don't. Payroll management, creating a compensation plan, creating an incentive program, all of this actually, providing benchmarking for salary and benefits. So how do we decide what to pay people? What is our structure of pay? It cannot be entirely ad hoc. It cannot be completely somebody's wish that I wish to pay this guy more and I wish to pay that guy less. There must be some logic, some structure to the payment to the salaries that people are paid. And that is why you must have heard organizations have levels and bands, and C&B people are essentially responsible for designing that, right? So on what basis incentives will get paid, on what basis people will get their salaries. This could include simple skills like being able to design a payslip that do you understand the payslip if you have worked before? What are various components of the payslip? These are various options that are available. The jobs I could find are payroll executive and C&B executive. For fresh graduates, these are the jobs that are available. Now, this was just to give you a brief idea about the various kinds of jobs that are available in the field of human resource. These are the career options. So you can be a generalist and specialize and go wide and sort of develop an ability to handle different domains of HR. Excuse me. Or you can become a specialist and focus in several different areas of. You can become a specialist, narrow down, and with a laser focus, develop your capability in one particular area of HR. Now, one of the challenges that people often face, especially fresh graduates, is how do they move forward with this? And I think broadly there are two options available. I mean, of course, the third option is that you look for an HR job right away. But if you are looking to specialize in HR, specific skills in HR, two options come up. One is an MBA or a PG degree, and the other is a certification. MBAs usually cost 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs if you do it from an average, below average institute. One of the challenges with MBAs is that MBAs essentially were conceptualized for working people. So it's people who have 3 to 5 years of experience they do an MBA, and then they work for 5 years, 6 years, and then they do an MBA, and then they are able to contextualize all their experience into the education of the MBA and walk out with a managerial expertise. The challenge that has happened in India, you see, if you have not done an MBA from any of the recognizable colleges, which is I think the top 20 or 30 colleges, it's almost equivalent to not doing an MBA, because there is no connection. First of all, the students who are going to do MBA do not have any idea of what things are like in the real world, because most of the time people directly after doing their education, college education, they walk into an MBA without having worked for a single day in their life. So whatever they learn in MBA, they learn it in the same way as whatever they have learned in their engineering or their BCom or BA, which is simply to memorize, rote learning, learn to pass exams. MBA institutes do try to deal with this problem, but I think they have been singularly unsuccessful simply because the speed of change in the world is just too great for them to cope. I think what is also happening, I think if you look at the world, the earlier model of the world, the earlier model of education and working in the world was that you study for about 3 to 5 years. Right? And then whatever you have studied for those 3 to 5 years, you use that for another 40 years of your life. Right? So you study for 3 years and for 5 years, and then what you study, you use that for the remaining of your work life. So that sort of certainty was there in the workplace. But with these radical changes we see in the workforce, and of course now we talk about artificial intelligence and robotics and how it's going to radically transform the world. People are talking about so many job losses that there will be a UBI, a universal basic income, provide social unrest. Governments will have to provide a basic income to everybody because everything will be done by computers. I mean, these are some sort of radical scenarios. We don't have to worry about them in India right now, but this is the direction in which the world is moving. Now, if you look at some of the most popular jobs today, search engine optimization specialist, social media specialist, these jobs did not exist 10 years ago, and there was no way for an organization, for a college to prepare anybody for these jobs, or an MBA to prepare anybody for these jobs. So, personally, I feel that the traditional construct of a 3+2 years or 4+2 years of education is going to be challenged severely in the years to come, because people are looking for relevant skills. Also, another thing is that the content of these academic programs is to teach people strategic concepts. So, for example, if you go to an MBA school, you will learn how to manage HR at a very high strategic level, a level which you will not reach for another 10 or 20 years. Isn't it? You will learn how to make these big plans and set vision statements, mission statements for organizations. But that's not what you will actually be doing. Once you go to a company, you'll be doing some basic things for the first few years. You will be doing recruitment, you will be coordinating training programs, you will be drawing pay slips, you'll be doing some basic things. And unfortunately, the way the education system is currently configured, it does not meet that need. And therefore, I feel quick, short, insightful, and work-related certification programs are a better option compared to an MBA degree.